Welcome to the Stretch2Go Podcast. My name is Ian Ray, your host. Today I got Josh Holland, based out in Harlem, New York. He's a fitness trainer and health optimization coach. Josh, welcome to the Stretch2Go Podcast.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I hope to hopefully get to talking about something relatively deep. I tend to be long-winded. I know this is a shorter than usual podcast for me, but here we go. Let's have some fun.
Do it. All right. So first of all, how the heck did you get into this whole health optimization and biohacking? Like, what was it that kind of led you down this path, man?
I have to say that since I can recall, like being a human being on this planet, I've been a very curious person. So I would say that probably is what got me started to what I do today. Just a pure curiosity that I've had since I can remember. And up until the point where when I was a little kid, I used to love watching the show Curious George and reading the books. And so I would eat bananas a lot and people would call me Curious Josh. And I used to move around like a monkey and, like not in a very cute way, not in like a, racist way where people can start going down rabbit holes in that direction. But I would just have fun as a kid. And I was always taking things apart and trying to put things back together. And I think that ultimately got me to where I am today, because at the end of the day, biohacking and health optimization and coaching in general is all about trial and error, testing things, creating hypotheses, and just seeing what works, and whether it works for the greater majority or it works for the N of one in these sort of anecdotal studies. These are the things that I'm all about. And that's why I'm here. I want to show up in the best way that I can and try to disseminate what works for me and those that I work with.
So who is your typical demographic of like people that you're working with on a day-to-day?
Well, I don't know if there's a typical, to be honest with you, without sounding too vague and saying that I work with Gen Pop, but I also work with professional athletes, and I also work with, A-list celebrities, and I work with kids, and I work with elderly, and I work with handicapped. So it's like, I basically try to be able to have some sort of understanding of how to work with anyone, literally anyone. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then where does the whole barefoot shoe, because like you're a barefoot proponent like me, having been working with Vivo Barefoot for a while, but when did that take to place? Because like, man, like not a lot of people, I would say, have gone down that route of, natural footwear. So like, what was that also that kind of led you to say, you know what, this is part of optimizing your health?
This started for me around, I'd say like 2000, maybe like 2009, like late 2009 is kind of when I first got my bit of introduction into the book Born to Run. And right around that time is when people who read that book, or if you got caught up into the hype around all of that, it was almost impossible to, especially here in New York, to live in New York and not know someone that probably got rid of their shoes on a whim after reading the book or seeing some video about it, taking off their shoes and then getting the Vibram 5 fingers and or just taking off their shoes completely and running barefoot. And while this was an amazing to see, it obviously was like the swinging of the pendulum going really far in one direction, and lots of people just kind of taking it with blind faith and not truly understanding the implications that might occur. I happen to be one of those people. And I think most people in today's world, if you are a proponent of barefoot, you probably have a similar story. And that's what I think is kind of beautiful about it, is because we can use that to then educate those ahead of us, right? Or those that come after us. And so now that's one of the things that we talk about quite a bit, but I digress. Learned about this in, let's say, 2009, realized that there was a company by the name of Vivo Barefoot that they were in their infancy, so to speak, at least in my world. And they had a small retail store in Soho here in New York. And I got introduced to them by way of one of my clients and her driver and her driver's friend. And lo and behold, like I was able to come up with a connection with this guy named Lee Saxby. And he was up there with these guys like Daniel Lieberman and Chris McDougall, and a lot of these names that are kind of at this GOAT level.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to work directly with Lee. And for the first time in my life, even though I played basketball at a high level, I ran track and field. I did cross country. I did lots of stuff, but no one had ever really broken down my running form. And which was interesting because it was almost like this juxtaposition of saying, like, I am a professional athlete, or on some level was a high level athlete. Yet there's this book that says I'm born to run, yet I'm being taught that what I was doing was not correct. So it was just like this back and forth of like, wait a minute, what's going on? And Lee was basically pumping my head, telling me like, bro, you could be a high level sprinter if you really worked on it. And subsequently did a very tough session, literally going from being a shod shoe wearer, wearing Max with the big foam and air pockets in the heels. And I went from that to very barefoot in a snap of a finger. And for a couple of days after that, I could barely walk. And that's when fortunately, I didn't tear anything. I didn't hurt myself, but it forced me to understand that, whoa, this is a different way of training.
Yeah.
And no matter how many heel raises or calf raises I've done and squats and sprinting and track and field, I had never felt that. So I didn't get scared. I got motivated. And then that's what eventually I started to notice that I was developing bunions on both of my feet. And Lee and the group within Vivo Barefoot started to help me to understand that as long as you undo what modern society is forcing us to do by shoving our foot into a coffin or a cast, when you can actually open up your feet, let your foot become a foot, he was like, then you don't really need to revert to having to get bunion surgery, and you can reverse that and all these things. And so I just kind of met this group at the perfect time. I think there are no coincidences.
Sure.
And then they rolled out this barefoot coaching program certification. So I got certified, was one of the first Americans to do so. And, the sky's the limit after that, because I just was like, well, no one else is really talking about feet. And so if I want to kind of have a niche, I was already in a niche in the fact that I was a celebrity trainer by this point, which is how I met, the group indirectly. But then I was like, I also was in a niche because I was working with like Victoria's Secret models. But then I was also in a niche because now I'm one of the few talking about barefoot. So, so before anyone was really ever talking about it, here I am with these like what they call like duck shoes, like with a wide forefoot. But I saw my feet changing and I didn't have to go and get bunion surgery. And so for me, I was sold. So that's all I wear now.
Yeah. Man, you tell me, especially, man, like you're in Soho, like New York, like people don't think of wearing barefoot, they're wearing designer shoes, right? And yeah, so I can't imagine you probably stuck out like a lot amongst your friends and peers, like, bro, why are you wearing those? But you're doing it for your own good. And I think that's kind of like my story too, is like I've had so many injuries and I've had so many foot pain that I kind of reverted to, going quickly into barefoot shoes, and I'm noticing also like, oh dang, this is not like how it's supposed to. I think it's that slow transition, or however long it takes, right, to get your foot working.
Yeah, I think it's the true concept of, and people have probably heard this, what I'm going to say. They've heard this quite a bit, and I'm sure you've heard it, and we've all heard it at some point. But a lot of times it doesn't really resonate with us until one of a couple things happen. You either get injured, you're either trying to get the most out of your performance to optimize your performance, or someone close to you, like it really resonates. Their story really resonates, right? And what I mean by that is this idea of function over fashion, right? So when function and fashion meet, you get somewhere closer to where Vivo Barefoot is right now. But early on, it was mostly just function because there was no fashion to it. And I'll be the first to say it, and I'm sure they would admit it. And we've all had laughs over the years about it, but here we are now. And I can say we, because even though I've been involved with Vivo Barefoot since 2009, 2010, I now, for the past couple of years, have been working for the brand internally, and I'm hired as a part-time consultant for the brand. And I happen to be now leading coaching and education for the US entity of the brand, which is great because I still get a chance to lean on those that are doing what I'm doing in the UK and have been doing such a great job at it. Like a big shout out to Ben Levacomte. I call him Ben LV just because his last name is hard to pronounce sometimes. Ben Levacomte, I think is how he says it. But Ben and I and another disciple of Lee Saxby in the early group is Cinta. I will not try to mention her last name, but we are amongst the group of people that have kind of been around the OGs, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And to see that we're still within the brand, I think really says a lot. And so if a person happens to know me now, if you go back into my early first posts on Instagram, you're going to see that I've been barefoot all this time, or in the barefoot style. And I think that's even worth mentioning because a lot of people say, well, yeah, but you're not barefoot. You got shoes on. It's like, well, yeah, it's semantics, right? It's the barefoot style, right? Which is wide, thin, and flexible, or just basically like the most natural of footwear that still protects the foot from the elements, but doesn't restrict movement. That's what we're talking about.
Man, I love talking about this because I think it's more and more people should learn about freaking like natural footwear. I mean, that's another thing, man. Like, I don't know if you agree, but like minimalist footwear, barefoot shoe, natural footwear. I mean, they're all synonymous, correct? I mean, if you think about it, or is there differences? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, there are differences, but
Mhm.
I would say for the average person, don't get caught up in all the differences around the hype because at the end of the day, let's just call it what it is. That anything that alters your biology is what we call biohacking, and anything that alters your environment is biohacking. If we want to like strip everything back to its most basic of foundations and fundamentals, that would be taking off your shoes and socks, starting there. Okay. So then if we all start there, because that's not where most people start. Most people
Mhm.
start with, well, I it's like they want to have the excuse off the bat. Well, I stand long periods of time on my feet, so I probably need to have cushion. Okay, now let's start from there and then what? Or look, I've been told I've got flat feet, so I've got to have arch support. But like, do these shoes work for arch support? No. Okay, well, I've got narrow feet, so I need a shoe that does blah, right? Or I've been told I've got high arches, or I've got bunions, or whatever. The list goes on. I
Yeah.
hear it daily, not weekly, not monthly. I hear it daily. Okay. So if you can imagine, I feel like a broken record sometimes trying to address all of these concerns that people have, but I try to do it with empathy. It's the reason why I come on to podcasts like this. It's the reason why I have my own podcast. And it's the reason why I put out a lot of free content. And at the end of this, we'll discuss how people can get in touch with me. But right before this call, I just set up for the first time a way for people to reach out to me at a cost and to do just 15-minute calls and ask me anything. Because I've realized that me putting content out is not enough. Me having a podcast is not enough. Me offering my services to people on my website and in person is not quite enough. So, okay, let's put your money where your mouth is. Are you willing to ask me questions because it really means something to you? We'll find out. So, yeah.
Hey. All right. So with the whole purpose of, let's say, function, we'll just say overview, functional footwear. Okay. The whole purpose of functional footwear for people who want to like look into this, move into it, is basically letting your foot do its thing, become being a foot, right? Having that natural toe splay, having the proprioception to feel the ground. And of course, like when we say like plantar fasciitis, maybe even get rid of or help alleviate plantar fasciitis, because that seems to be a growing thing of people saying, well, if you have barefoot shoes, it's not going to help my plantar fascia, or I have plantar fasciitis. I can't get into barefoot shoes. Let's debunk a lot of these myths that people are probably, or even yourself, that you've come across of why barefoot shoes
Yeah.
over anything.
So, why barefoot? At the end of the day, you want to always allow the foot to be a foot because let's just face it, if we want to get super basic, we were not born with shoes. Now, the average person that hears that will say, well, we also weren't born with clothes. We also weren't born with chairs and blah, blah. There's a lot of things we weren't born with, right? And I get that. But just for the sake of like just trying to understand everything from its very foundational perspective, we were born without shoes. And then as we get, and also one of the first things you do when a baby is born is they usually tickle the bottom of the foot to try to make sure that everything is intact because of all those sensory receptors, mechanoreceptors in the bottom of the foot. Well, that should tell you something right away. That's one of the first things that happens besides determining if the baby is breathing and is able to feed and things like that, right? But like one of the most important checks you have when the baby is first born is the sensations in the bottom of the foot, because then chances are most everything is going to be okay, right?
Hmm.
But then we end up screwing all that up by binding the foot and by asking our bodies to be in an unnatural position, sitting for long periods of time. We're being told as we get older and in our more formative years, we're being told to be quiet, to stop moving, and to fit into a box. The box of society's restrictions upon us, but also the box and the restrictions of modern footwear.
Hmm.
And the same goes with clothing. The same goes with almost everything. We're just kind of told to be put in a box. And so what I like to try to do is to allow ourselves to free ourselves, to free our feet, be barefoot as much as possible. And people might say, yeah, but like I'm at work all the time. And okay, well, when you're not at work, then can you at least be barefoot at home? Can we start there? Yeah, but then I have to have socks on because my floors are cold. Okay, well, do you think that maybe you could put on toe socks then, right?
Yeah.
Maybe find some wool, right? And so like I'm really big in the toe sock world. I feel like it really doesn't make sense for me personally. Okay, this is just my opinion, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest in a wide toe box shoe because you've heard that it's beneficial for you for your toes display, but then to have your feet still bound by conventional socks. That's just how I think about it,
Yeah, bro.
right? And I see you got, there you go. You got the
Yeah.
toe
Yeah.
socks on. Great,
Yeah.
right? So now that's just all you're doing. And it doesn't mean that we are virtue signaling and we are better than anyone else because we're doing that. But what we are doing is trying to give ourselves the widest berth to be able to improve, to be able to optimize, right? And so right now I'm standing with socks on in my apartment, but I have toe socks on that are wool and has the highest wool content. It's something that, I'll be talking about in the future, but wool, my underwear that I have on are wool. So it's like I'm also trying to think not only about my feet, but
Hmm.
the rest of my body and the rest of the environment and everything else. It is holistic, right? But a lot of times people want to try to poke holes in the whole foot thing so that they can then discount anything else that I say, right? Well, okay, but this brand is better than that brand because this one has a higher, footbed and this one has more support. And it's like, no, the best technology to go into a shoe is the human foot, period.
Hmm.
And you may have heard me say this before on other pieces of content, but it's something that we say. It's part of our, guiding statement at Vivo Barefoot. And it is, again, the best technology to go into a shoe is the human foot. And that should tell you that we should be thinking about things a little bit more inversely. So instead of spending all the money to go out and buy the fancy shoes that's going to promise us blah, we should be thinking, how can I find something that allows me to continue to work my feet, but give me just enough protection to then not get hurt? And I just so happen to know a couple brands that do that. And one of my favorite ones is Vivo Barefoot. But then I can get even more cheesy and say, when you can't be barefoot, be Vivo Barefoot. So there you go.
Cool. No, that's such a key thing. Like the whole, if you were to wear regular socks and then put your foot into a wide toe box shoe, it's like wearing, like a sock, a glove, like a mitten, and trying to fit that in, like it just does not get that splay. It's restricting, still restricting itself. So it doesn't make sense. So I've always asked people, are you team toe socks or not? But granted, there are socks that have that wide toe box that's flexible enough. So that's another alternative too, for
That's right.
people who aren't into toe socks. But I just find it very comfortable to wear toe socks. So it's natural for me.
Absolutely. And for those that are looking for a little extra help around the splaying of the toes, one of the other reasons why it's important to have toe socks, if you plan on wearing socks inside your shoes, is you can also, depending on how wide your foot is, you can also wear your toe spacers with your toe socks in your wide toe box shoes. And so like I'm at a point now where my foot has grown so much and widened so much that I can't quite get away with that anymore.
Mhm.
Unless I went with like a bigger size. I don't really want to do that for the sake of it. But there are times in which like using toe spacers while you're being active is probably very beneficial. Now, if you're passively just sitting around and your toes are being spread with toe spacers, that's fine, right? That's cool because you can do it for a lot longer usually. But what you really want to do is opt to use that when you're working out, when you're actually flexing through your flexors of your toes and the extensors of the toes, and you're wanting to make sure that you're encouraging good postural movement while you're loading your system. That's probably the key time to do it. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that. It's like when you see people going, like you'll see someone wearing these huge Hokas and these big weird looking shoes. To me, they're weird to me now. You can see them doing that, going to the gym and leaving the gym, but they take off their shoes for deadlifts. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, okay,
That
so you
makes sense.
understand there are some benefits of doing that when you really severely load your body, but yet when you go outside or you're doing anything else, it doesn't make sense to also be a little bit more grounded to the floor. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I saw Squat University Dr. Aaron Hershig like having a graphic of wearing running shoes or very thick cushion shoes and trying to do like heavy deadlifts or squats, and like how just doing that, that's such a horrible thing for your knees and for your ankles. I mean, like those are running shoes, they're not lifting shoes. If you're going to lift weights, more or less do barefooted or barefoot shoes, because you need that contact, very level, I mean, a flat surface, so that your foot can drive through. It just doesn't make sense when I see people on the gym working on running shoes. I just never did like it. Let's go into this next subject real quick. As far as like, let's say, what are some of your favorite biohacking hacks that you typically share with clients as far as an easy access to get into biohacking? What are some easy ways to do that? The last few questions I had for you, talking about biohacking, because I know it's probably one of your favorite things to talk about, but what's an easy way for anyone who is looking to, optimize their health? Easy, accessible ways that they can start doing today.
Well, the probably the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to, let's call it, health optimization or biohacking. I think I would most likely get people to start with some of the things that don't cost any extra money or very little. And this is the cliche typical thing that I'm sure many people have heard, but that's like exposing yourself to the elements. So if it's cold outside, then expose yourself to being a little bit cold from time to time. If it's hot outside, expose yourself to being a little bit hot when you're indoors, right? So like trying to just, there's a really good book called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And it's one of the things that I feel a lot of people should just harness a little bit, because we in today's world try so hard to be comfortable at all costs. And I think it's to our detriment. And I think it's the reason why we tend to feel like we have to get the perfect diet and we have to have the perfect workout and the perfect gym and the perfect this and that. And everything has to be catered to trying to undo the things that we've just fallen into, right? Just because of society. So getting outdoors, experiencing the elements, obviously soaking in the sunlight, but also soaking in the moonlight from time to time. Getting the fire in your eyes sometimes, right? Like just visualizing more than just the screens and these cityscapes, right? Like get outside in nature and get a little uncomfortable. Dip into the river or the ocean, go fishing, challenge yourself to live life. And I think that's bringing in more joy. Hopefully that does bring in more joy. And that's a true hack in itself. Building community, getting out and touching people, not just talking to people online, not just texting, not just making phone calls, which is a little bit better than texting, but literally going out and hugging someone, shaking hands with someone, breaking bread with someone, with groups of people. And this is probably why we're seeing this trend of run clubs and community social events and things like that, because people now are sort of the pendulum is swinging so far now this other direction because of what happened during the pandemic, and we were all isolated and asked to be isolated. But
Hmm.
now here we are. We have this true opportunity to build community. So why not ride the wave and let's do it? So when it comes to like low cost, next to no cost health hacks, it's as simple as that. Move as much as you can. Don't worry about like if you've got a gym to go to and if it's open at a certain time. Just get outside and go walk. Throw in a backpack, put some extra weight into it. And then the people will go, yeah, but like how much weight is classified as rucking and 20% of this, and it doesn't matter. Just put some extra weight in there. Go for the longest walk you can handle and make your way back. Like this stuff doesn't have to be hard, but we make it difficult because there's so much information out there and we're all looking for where we belong. We're looking for our own communities. We're looking for our mission and our purpose in life. And sometimes it's hard to find unless you explore. So go explore.
No, man, that's awesome, brother. Thanks so much. Love to close off by having you share with the audience ways that they can reach out to you, whether by social, email, website, booking a session. What is it that they can get in contact
The easiest
with
way
you?
to get in touch with me would be on any of the social media platforms. I've been fortunate enough to have the same username for all of the platforms, and it's simply at Joshua J. Holland. And so that's Joshua with the letter J and then Holland. So the letter J in between Joshua and Holland is my middle initial. So Joshua J. Holland. And as I mentioned earlier on the show, I just unveiled, and I'm going to be doing a lot more, but I just opened up this spot for little 15-minute conversations that a person can book. It's on my link tree. It's right at the top. There's also, if you're interested in working with me in other capacities, speaking engagements, so on and so forth, my media kit and pitch deck is on there as well. So I'm trying to like build this thing out. And I also have a podcast, and my
Yeah,
podcast is called Simply Walk the Talk. And so, at some point, maybe we can get you on mine and we can swap roles.
definitely. Love to, man. But thank you so much for, like I said, once share being on the podcast, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and of course talking about foot barefoot shoes, because that's really my passion right now. Is just talking about fashion and barefoot, and it's just a synonymous thing to talk about both things, and hopefully more people like yourself out there to really spread the awareness. So thanks again,
Thank
man.
you.
Appreciate you.
Peace.
Thanks.